Last night had 15 games, so I did what I could to get some extra sleep last night, and I had some sleep the night before as well. I am catching up. I do make sure I catch up, so when people talk about, oh, I think you're overworking, and no, I make sure I get caught up. That being said, there are some things we can discuss this morning, or I guess this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you are. Last night, there was an incident where Matt Calvert takes a puck in the ear. He's bleeding on the ice. The whistle didn't go. The referee has some discretion here where he technically can blow the whistle if he thinks that it's a grievous injury and requires immediate medical attention. But again, it's up to him, and until the possession changes over, so if Colorado grabs it, then whistle blows. This has been the rule for a while, and the rule came into effect because guys would occasionally fake an injury. And they wanted to make sure, they being the NHL, that, these were legit. And it happens. Guys will fake injuries. How many times have we talked about something that happens in the game and somebody will say in the comment section below the video, well, that was just a fake. You saw him out there the next shift. One of the biggest complaints you'd hear is, oh, they have the trainer out on the ice and everything's really bad. And next thing you know, he's right back on the ice a minute and a half later. He's a faker. Now, if you take the rule out so that the moment that anything happens and a guy looks like he's injured, there's a whistle, you're going to have a lot more whistles. And you're going to have whistles for guys who aren't really hurt. The thing is, there should be a provision added to that rule. So whether it's a general manager's or a board of governors meeting, whatever has to get this ball rolling, really, honestly, if a guy gets a puck in the head or a puck in the ear, that should be an immediate whistle. It's not. Same as when Chris Tanev, I believe he blocked a shot with his foot or his ankle. He could barely skate. He was really clearly hobbled against Winnipeg last week. And, that went against the Vancouver Canucks, where they couldn't get a whistle either. This is kind of standard. Now, the one incident that stands out to me about getting a whistle is when Tuukka Rask threw a blade on his skate, and he's holding it up to the referee, and they didn't blow the whistle. Now, the rule was they don't have to. That was the right call. And yet the referee himself, when asked after the game, said, well, if I'd seen it, I would have blown the whistle. So there's some discretion there. That being said, this isn't the first time I've seen a guy get hit in the head with a puck this year and not get a whistle for it. It's just this led to a goal which turned the momentum of the game. So, we'll see if the NHL changes that rule, but until they do, for better or for worse, this is the way that the rule is interpreted. This is the way the rule is enforced. And hopefully Calvert's okay. They need to have those helmets altered so you can't take a puck in the ear. That would be nice. I mean, everybody says, anytime I talk about covering up your face, because it's important to have a face, people say, oh, they can't have a cage because then they can't see, which was the same argument against goaltenders having masks back in the day. Back in the 50s, when goalies were starting to wear masks, the argument from coaches and general managers was, well, they can't see wearing that. They're going to let in way too many goals. I told them to take it off. So the idea of guys covering up their face, and there's a way to make it so that it's plexiglass or whatever you want to do, so that it's not obscuring their vision. And I think it's worth looking at, because without a face, just like without an ear, it's probably going to affect your quality of life. It's just so weird to me. They often say, hockey, they invented the jockstrap right away, but helmets they started wearing decades and decades down the road, because men make sure they protect what's important. All right, that said and that aside, we'll go to the Oscar Sundqvist hearing that's going to take place today for charging goaltender John Gibson. The Ducks didn't forget. Sundqvist didn't get kicked out of the game either, so if we have an incident again where the NHL suspends and he didn't get kicked out of the game, we're looking at officiating. Now the Blues lost the game. Gibson was okay. He finished the game, but still, just boneheaded thing. Sundqvist plays on the edge, very physical player, and this is what's going to happen. I'm not sure what Tom Wilson's going to get. I'm just kidding. But we'll see what happens with Sundqvist. He does have a history, so that may play into this. We'll see. It's not a history for charging, I don't think, though. I think that was for, was that a cross-check? Anyways. I also wanted to talk about last night's Hockey Night in Canada. Now, I know everybody said we're not going to watch it anymore. We're done. We're finished. And people say that a lot, and then they watch it. About just regular TV shows too. I'm done with this show. I'm finished. And then you look at the ratings the next week, and it's about the same. I will be interested to see where Hockey Night in Canada's ratings were this week, but they had a segment after the first period where Ron McLean talked about this last week. I thought he handled himself well. I thought he spoke with emotion and passion, and I thought he was very honest about his feelings about it, and I didn't think that he threw anybody under the bus on this. I didn't think that he did anything other than take full responsibility on this, and he very seriously thought about just quitting. He did. Could tell him what he was saying, that he had thought about just quitting, and he decided, no, I'm not going to quit. And I applaud him for, in this day and age of the vitriol you'll get online, the vitriol you can get in general, that he's willing to say, all right, I'll continue to take that rather than run and hide, when people wouldn't necessarily blame him for running and hiding. Also, I don't know what kind of moron goes out and desecrates a cenotaph and says he's doing it for Don Cherry. What in the world? And that happened, that a cenotaph, a memorial, was desecrated with spray paint, and the guy who did it said he did it because of the Don Cherry thing. It's there to honor war dead and veterans. Holy crap! That's where things just right now for me are just I don't understand. I'm like, why? What in the world? I blew up that plane for airline safety. Makes just as much sense. Just as much sense. All right. Brian Burke thinks that Babcock's job is in jeopardy. He does. He thinks that Mike Babcock is on the clock. And he should have been from game 5 or 6 into this season. I don't think this works. I look back to last year's playoffs and some of the bewildering decisions about who to play in which situation. And I really think that there's an argument to be made that, yeah, he needs to go bring up Sheldon Keefe and see if that can turn things around. The Leafs can't mess around with any of this, and apparently teams have started calling about Tyson Barrie, who clearly is not fitting in with Toronto. I don't think he's happy there. I don't think that he fits in at all. But Toronto is not listening to offers on Tyson Barrie right now, because of course they're not. We'll see how this turns out. I've started hearing some conversations about, hey, Kyle Dubas didn't have any experience running an NHL team before he ran the Leafs. Yeah. Running the Marlies, that's an American Hockey League franchise. Completely different. You're not dealing with the multi-million-dollar contract demands. You're not dealing with that same level of elite athlete that you are later on. There's a lot of work to be done when it comes to being a general manager. It's not something you can just, here you go. Okay. I mean, now we've all played NHL games on EA Sports, and maybe he's really, really good at it. But in this case, there are problems with Toronto. There are problems with this roster. And I think that coaching this roster is also part of the problem. I do not envy those in Toronto with having to turn this around while Mitch Marner is injured. There's been a key guy injured for a lot of games this year. And I think their lack of a backup goaltender is hurting them as well. That being said, I'm not going to put last night's loss on Kaskasuo, because I don't think it would have mattered if Carey Price was in net for Toronto. They only scored 1 goal against Pittsburgh. And this is a Pittsburgh team that was without Crosby. There are major problems with Toronto. Minor issue, Rasmus Dahlin was benched in the third period last night in Buffalo's win over Ottawa. Ralph Kruger stated all the right things, said that, nope, get to learn from this is great. But Dahlin being benched is noteworthy. Kevin Fiala got benched in the third last night too. I thought about putting that on the board, and I thought, I'll just mention it. Fiala being benched isn't really surprising. Dahlin being benched is. This is a kid that does have 13 points this year. But you can see that he's been struggling at times, and during their 6-game losing streak, he had his struggles. And this is what happens in your second year. Teams adjust. You have to go through the grind all over again, and for second-year players, it can be a challenge. Dryden Hunt is on waivers from Florida. Also, Michael Haley's on waivers for the Rangers. Again, I didn't put everything on the board. Dryden Hunt being on waivers, I think, is notable because somebody might pick him up. if you need a physical bottom six forward, you might pick him up. Toronto, listening? He's a physical bottom six forward. He can check. He gets penalty minutes. He's not a great scorer, but yeah. So he's on waivers for Florida. We'll see whether or not he clears tomorrow. Jonathan Drouin, who is now on the injured reserve, so he's going to miss a minimum of a week. His injury is not related to the hit he took from Ovechkin. That was a hit that Claude Julien was not a fan of. He wasn't a fan of. I believe he was indicating that Ovi left his feet. But Drouin's injury is not related to the Ovechkin hit. Apparently it happened in the third period, and they're being very quiet about exactly what it is because this is the NHL. Speaking of injury news, though, and I'll end on this for now, I get the feeling there's going to be more to talk about later, like, for instance, Sundqvist after the hearing. We're going to discuss if he's been suspended. Ole Ulevi is out for Utica, and they're not saying for how long, just that it's a lower body injury. It's not related to the other injury he's been dealing with. And the kid looked pretty good for Utica. His numbers were really, really solid, and there were a lot of Canuck fans waiting for him to get called up. And now he's out for an undetermined amount of time. It's an indefinite-looking injury right now, and the kid just can't buy a break. So there you go. Just some news of the day. You guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. On the Ron McLean thing, I'm very glad the Don Cherry videos settled down. There was a conversation to be had, and what's funny is I'm starting to hear that now from other media. Like, oh, we should probably try to have a conversation about some of the stuff that gets brought up in this. Yes. There's a lot of a very disjointed country around Canada right now, and we have a lot of conversations that can be had not by shouting at each other. Anyways, we'll see how that goes, and again, how much of it ends up relating to hockey. Hockey is a religion in Canada, so as it is, because everybody kind of lives and breathes hockey or hates it, there doesn't seem to be an in-between there. Although there are some who, during the regular season, couldn't care less, and then once playoffs roll around, woohoo, my team's in the playoffs. Or, yeah, I knew there were a bunch of bums they weren't going to make the playoffs. That's why I didn't watch this season. Anyways, there's those three different kinds in Canada. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.